Well, hello. Just rushing in from the flight. Welcome to day 37. And apologies for this late hour and the delay today. And for the light, it's really weird light to look at. Anyway, that doesn't really matter for what I am about to share today. And I had quite some fun playing around while sitting in the airplane and thinking or contemplating, I would almost say, about what I was going to share. And actually the quote of Andy Warhol, I saw an exhibition of him in Rome, came up. And he said, and I can't exactly quote him, but he said something like, we spend most of our lives, or we waste most of the time of our lives seeing and not observing. And that kind of stick with me, because I think how interesting it is how he said that, because obviously knowing his work, probably all of you know the work of Andy Warhol. He made quite an art out of observing people and putting them in a different way on canvas or in his prints. And so he did the same with typical daily life articles. And so thinking back about what the difference is, I became aware, now it's really tricky with all the words, that walking through a city for a couple of days, a new city, well, not entirely new, but not a city where I live, you see a lot of things. And there's a huge difference between seeing things and then noticing what you're seeing. And still, when you're noticing what you're seeing, it's still not the same as observing what you're seeing. And when you observe, I can't really notice a difference, but it's actually the same as becoming aware of something. So when you go from noticing into observing, you really have to make an observations of your thoughts as well as your feelings or your senses, what happens within yourself or what happens around you that you can pick up on. That makes it possible to go into a state of observation. And noticing is still just being linked to your automatic reaction to what you see. So you see something and then you notice, you become aware of what you see in the sense that you just notice it. But it doesn't mean that you're at the same time aware of what you really observe at the same time, what really happens within you. So sometimes we just see things and automatically label it with A, B, or C, depending on the association we have with that, what we see. Like if you look at the word plane, then for some people that might create fear. But just seeing the word plane, they might not even notice it. But as soon as they notice the word plane and become some feeling can come up. If they have fear around flying, that gives a contraction. If you then go to the next state and observing what's happening when you see the word plane and you have this fear of flying, then you can become aware of the fact that you notice the contraction and the emotion around your fears associated with the word plane. And the same, obviously, is for all your senses, whether you hear something, feel something, see something, or touch something, or smell something. There are different states, what you can do with what's happening. And going unaware through life, it's just happening. And sometimes you get a bit more aware of something when it really hits you, or it's something that pleases you. But you're completely caught up in what's happening. So becoming the observer of what's happening, you literally take a step back. Not the identified you takes a step back, but the one that's observing the identified one. And I've talked about this before, and I know this is complicated. But perhaps by me using the word observing, it might become a little more easier. So by observing what's happening in your system, what thoughts are coming up, what feelings arise, what happens in your body, you can observe your identified self. And that the one who's observing is you. So it's not really that complicated. You do it all the time. You're just completely not aware that's a different state, actually. And if you take something which is less personal, like intense emotion because of past experience, but if you start playing around with things that just happen around you, and then associate with the word or the image you see, then just notice what comes up within you. What kind of thought comes up first? Because the thought is related to an experience. And then the thought becomes a little story, and that's related to a pattern. And then immediately something in your body arises, which is related to the emotion, related to the experience. So if you can sense something somewhere, if you can become aware of a thought, you're already observing the thought. Otherwise, you cannot become aware of the thought. And we need this state of observation or this state of awareness in order to connect to this present state and to connect to who we really are, where this solidness and power comes from, or is actually residing. It's already there. And it's the same state as what I mentioned many times before. It's the same state as where we can let go of the attachment of things that actually don't fit ourselves. And it's the same state that we can use if we interact with people, and if we go into the observation state while we're interacting with people, we can really be there for the other person as well as we can be there for ourselves. So we can share things with each other and really listen to each other instead of just sending messages and only listening to answers we would like to hear, and then send another message in order to be right, or to share what we think or know, and then we're so caught up in our story and in ourselves that we forget to actually see what's happening on the other side, the one we're talking to. So obviously, what I'm sharing now is nothing new, because this whole journey of these 99 days is about becoming more aware of what's happening. But today it just occurred to me while I was playing with it, like looking at a glass of wine and then just observing what happens within me. So perhaps it helps you to train this state of observation, to just play with it, with things that are neutral to you. Not so neutral that nothing happens, but I think most of the things around you are not completely neutral. You have some relationship with it, or experience with it, or something in the past that has happened that comes up, or you associate the word or what you see with, or the smell. Because something smells only bad if we have an association with the fact that we think it's bad. Or we became nauseous before, or we may believe it's a bad smell. And that counts for every sense we have. All our senses, then I mean the hearing, the smelling, the touching, the feeling, anything. And try to pick words or images or things that give positive and negative associations, so you can really notice the difference. Perhaps if you look at the newspaper and you see an image of something dreadful that happened, or then watch yourself, observe yourself and your inner self, all your senses. And then I mean everything within your body. Just see what happens. And notice what thought comes up. So the observation state is actually the same as the third person that is observing what's happening. So you, who's observing, becomes the third person of your identified self, who has an experience with what it is observing or what it's looking at. And try to play with different emotions, like a joyful one, an emotional one, for instance, like a fragrance that reminds you of someone who died, that is close to you. And see what happens if you smell that fragrance again. Without, of course, creating the story in advance. And if you walk through a city like we did in Rome, and things are completely new to you, then there's no association with a personal past experience. But I did notice, being around many people at the same time at an historical place, that there was a lot of intensity. Yeah, I don't know if that's an English word, but anyway, was a lot of intense energies at the same time. And they were different from place to place. So it probably also was related to the historical place itself and that what had happened there. So observing is nothing more, at least not that I can explain differently, than becoming aware of something. The only well, there's not a difference, but what might help is that the one who's observing is actually the one outside you, and at the same time is you. So it's you observe your own thoughts, or your own feelings, or your own senses. And the fact that you can sense it, or can become aware of a thought, is already enough. There's another deeper layer than that. The only depth within this is that you can really become detached from that experience, or the feelings that are associated with it. So then you kind of like step out of the situation, and literally, some people can do that easily. Observe the situation like you have a helicopter view. You look from above, and you literally see yourself as well as the situation you're in. And by going more into this state of observation or of awareness, you might think, and that might hold you back from going into this state, because you think you might get very indifferent. And the contrary is true. Because from that state you can literally see everything, or feel or sense everything, and that makes it all inclusive, including yourself, your identified self, and including everything that's happening at the same time. People around you, or the event or experience. So in other words, you're completely present then. And it's really interesting to do it with different things than just a visual. You can also do it very well with hearing or smelling, like I said before. So can you imagine if you just become aware of everything that's happening? Well, now, all of us, including me, most of them just experience life unnoticed. Of course, we see things where we don't notice them. You can even drive home, and if you drive that same route many times, you suddenly are aware, like, oh, I'm already here. And if you go in more in this state of observation or awareness, this full awareness what's happening, then you're literally stepping out of it. And that means that you yourself getting out of the way and not caught up in the emotion or in the experience you had before. And when you get yourself out of the way of what's happening, then you can see all perspectives or all viewpoints, or you can actually see what's happening or feel what's happening. And that makes it so much lighter, but also so much more profound to react to the situation. So then you might become aware that there's no need to be right, because it's actually not so relevant, or there's no need to control, because what's happening is actually not out of control. It's just happening, and your mind created a story that's out of control, or that it needed control. Or you want to be right because you want to be seen for something. And for me, it was really helpful to have this sentence like, I'm getting myself out of the way here, or take myself out of the way here. And it immediately took me kind of like in this third position place, and I could observe what was actually the situation instead of being blinded. And in the end, it's all becoming aware of our automated patterning that we are so caught up in, and our stored emotions that come up without noticing. I'm kind of feeling I'm repeating myself here because I think I've said it so many times. I probably have, and I probably will for the next 60 days or so. And it really needs training. It honestly needs, and I still need training, or I still train myself. And even when you go in the observation state, it doesn't mean that you cannot show emotion. You can consciously show emotion, because at that moment that's the right thing to do, to make something clear or to share your feelings. It's not that you go in a silent state and just step back and don't do anything. but you are in that moment aware that the emotion is there. And hopefully you can become more aware of how you express the emotion. And I think if you want to practice with this more consciously, the first thing to practice with is just don't actively search for something, but just when you see something, then you go through the process of noticing and observing. Or when you hear something or smell something or feel something. But the feeling one is more difficult because that is always a result of the other things. We just take the 5 senses we normally use. And see what happens, what comes up. And it always starts with a thought. Even if the feeling is very present at the same time, like a contraction or a fear or something strong or a happy feeling, but still there is a thought before that feeling. That's a funny example now. I just sent it to Hans and I hear a sound I don't know. And my immediate association is with sounds like something is leaking. And that means that it's above me, leaking somewhere. Some water issue. Which obviously is not true, but that's actually the first thing that came up. And then I could sense this little, I don't know if it's nervousness or annoyance, like, oh my God, I hope it's not true. Now the sound has stopped. That's funny. Okay, I will check it later. Okay, so try to see if this helps, and if not, let me know. If I need to explain it further, don't get too caught up in the different states of observation and awareness, and if it doesn't make sense yet. But I'm sure you are able to observe something. which is a little bit deeper than just noticing. Okay. Once again, apologies for being so late, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.